This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome. I'm Catherine Inskip, your editor and host. Episode 491 is our 33rd Little Wonders collection. The theme of today's stories is Dreams and Identity. Sleep Tight by Mark Joslin is a Cast of Wonders original. Mark Joslin is a defence attorney working for the Cook County Public Defender's Office. His work has appeared in Dark Matter and Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine. He lives in Chicago with his dog, Kirby, and an obscene amount of comic books. This story is narrated by Catherine Inskip. Catherine Inskip is the editor for Cast of Wonders. She teaches astrophysics for a living and spends her spare time populating the universe with worlds of her own. And now, we've a tale to tell. Sleep Tight by Mark Joslin, narrated by Catherine Inskip. You were right, you know, when you were a child. I was hiding under your bed. You knew it, even though you couldn't prove it. Even after your mother kissed your cheek and tucked you in and told you there was nothing to be afraid of. Even after your father knelt and checked and told you there was nothing hiding down there. Even when you summoned up all your courage and looked for yourself, hanging off the edge of your bed, your trembling flashlight shining on nothing but forgotten socks and lost toys. You still knew that somehow, some way, I was down there. You knew the truth back then, that this world is so thin, so much of it no more than a dream, and that there were old things, hungry things, waiting on the other side, yearning to come through. And so you lay frozen in your bed, seeing me in your mind with a clarity that your eyes could never match. You saw my endless rows of teeth, my burning red eyes, my greedy claws just waiting to snatch up little children left alone. Snatch them and drag them down that nightmare tunnel to a forgotten hole in the world where legs cannot run and screams cannot be heard. And it wasn't the prayers you said, or how tightly you pulled up the covers that kept you safe. No. It was just you. Running, leaping, bounding, climbing, laughing, invincible you. How could I have ever competed with you? You, who conjured worlds of magic with shrieks and jumps, who could stretch a summer afternoon out for an eternity, who could transform little sticks to mighty swords and couch cushions to pirate ships. You who stole kisses and conquered trees and tumbled down great hills only to sprint back up them again. I never would have stood a chance. But that's not who you are anymore, is it? Now there's a new you. Groaning, trudging, sinking, binging, snarking, fragile you. You for whom the new day is no longer an adventure, but a chore. Who seeks not fun, but distractions. Who no longer dreams of alien worlds and lost kingdoms, just paltry things. Things that deep down you know you'll never have. You who dies 100 little deaths a day from frustrations and limitations and disappointments. That's who you are now. The you that you were is gone. But I'm still here. And I'm still hungry. Still waiting. Still ready to swallow you down into that deep, deep dark where nothing is ever found again. You're not quite ready yet. Not quite ripe. But that's all right. I've waited this long. I can wait a little longer.
When we're small, the world is large and full of possibilities. If we're lucky, we grow into it. If we're not, sometimes it shrinks around us. The fears change as we grow older too. The monster under the bed or inside the wardrobe fades into the clutter of our lives. Fears become abstract, what people think of us, whether our dreams and goals are appropriate. If we're doing enough, being enough, good enough. We stop reaching for the impossible, and we close the door on the brightest, most wonderful part of who we are. When dreams are gone or forsaken, what's left to keep us strong and hold the dark at bay? Our second story is In the Library of Longing by Zaan van Rooyen, previously published in Daily Science Fiction in February 2021. Climber, tattoo collector, peanut butter addict and loyal Shiba minion, Zaan van Rooyen is a non-binary storyteller from South Africa, currently living in Finland, where the heavy metal is soothing and the cold, dark forests inspiring. They have a master's degree in music and, when not teaching, enjoy conjuring strange worlds and creating quirky characters. You can find Zaan's short stories in the likes of Three-Lobed Burning Eye, Daily Science Fiction and Bards and Sages Quarterly, among others. You can also read their novels like I Heart Robot and By the Blood of Rowans. Feel free to hang out with Zaan on Instagram and Twitter at Zaan_writer. This story is narrated by Sarah Ely. Sarah Ely is a software developer and writer who once, under the name Steve Ely, started a little science fiction podcast called Escape Pod. You might have heard of it. She was the original founder of Escape Artists, our parent company, before retiring from podcasting in 2010. She's spent much of the past 10 years exploring the frontier territories of multiple identity and gender, and is just starting to write home about what she's found. You can follow her exploits at sarah.wtf. And now, we've another tale to tell.
In the Library of Longing by Zaan van Rooyen. Eris sterilized her instruments with dabs of a rosemary blood decoction. It smelled wholesome, with only a hint of iron. She prepared a jar, too, the glass bright green. Her client sighed in annoyance as she flipped to the final page of the contract. "Is this really necessary?" Mrs. Fernsby asked. "She's only 8. She glanced at the girl perched on the settee beside her. "Your daughter is the one undergoing the procedure." Mrs. Fernsby shoved the contract and pen into her daughter's fingers. "Write your name," she said. "No heart on the I." The pen trembled in the girl's hand. She frowned in concentration, freckles scrunched and tongue peeking from her mouth as she formed careful letters. Eris tucked the contract into a drawer overflowing with others. "Go on, Jessica." Mrs. Fernsby nudged her daughter toward the table draped in white sheets. Jessica shuddered, her gaze resting on the blades. "Don't worry, it doesn't hurt," Eris said. At least, not in the way her clients feared. She helped the girl onto the table. "I know others wait until their kids are older, but I think it's best to deal with these things before they do damage," Mrs. Fernsby said. Eris forced a smile. "It's best if you wait in the drawing room." "Be good." Mrs. Fernsby kissed her daughter's ginger hair before sashaying away. "Lie back and close your eyes," Aris said. Jessica did, fists clenched tight at her sides. "Mummy says I'll feel better once it's all gone, but what if... She bit her lip, a frown crumpling her gossamer fine brows. "What if Mummy's wrong?" "Shh, it'll be over soon," Aris said. Yet she hesitated before slicing open the child's potential. The contract stated a simple extraction. Remove the silly dreams, leaving intact all sensible ambition. Aris pried apart the fibrous tissue of the girl's soul stuff, slicing through tenuous strands connecting lofty ideals with realistic goals. When Aris was finished, Jessica would never have to face the disappointment of aiming too high and missing. Aris took up a hook. She dipped it into the depths of Jessica's aspirations, catching the silly dreams with deft flicks of her fingers. They gathered on the point, writhing as Aris transferred them to the waiting jar. She studied the wound. A flash of silver burrowed deeper. Aris picked up slim tweezers, then went hunting through the filaments of desire. Aris caught the dream. It shimmered and twisted in the tweezers. It was no silly thing, no dream at all, but a truth camouflaged. Should she leave it, it might lead to disappointment and pain. If she left this one, then the soul might remember the others it had lost. But to remove it? Aris listened closely as the sliver of silver whispered. She listened, and she understood. Her heart crackled like kindling in her chest as she eased the sliver back into the crevasse she'd carved. The spark within her grew, fanned by memory into fragile flame. Aris stitched the wound and screwed closed the jar. On the lid, there was an empty space waiting for a name. She wrote the child's true name, the one that whispered by silver. Mrs. Fernsby paid and left with a clacking of heels. The child hesitated at the door and turned back to look at Aris with eyes as green as the jar containing his dreams. "Goodbye, Dylan," Aris mouthed, and the child's lips curled into a smile, his hand resting over the scar on his chest, and his truth stitched safe. Aris pressed her own hand against her chest, feeling the tender warmth of half-remembrance burning beneath her skin. She cleaned her tools and set the sheets soaking in lavender before she took the jar to her library. She'd keep Dylan's dreams safe, as she did for all her clients, just in case one day he returned for his jar and all she'd taken from him. Her library held 100,000 longings, contained within hand-blown glass. Aris walked barefoot to the nearest shelf and cleared a space for the green jar. She dragged her fingers along the others. She remembered, and she grieved. What if Mummy's wrong? Dylan's words echoed in her ears. Aris wondered how many truths she'd mistaken for silliness. How many dreams had she wrenched from souls when she should have left them to grow? How much joy had she murdered trying to save others from a life of misery? What if it were she who were wrong? She studied her hands, remembering a different time and a different name. Where was her truth? Trapped behind glass like a firefly destined to lose its light, wings broken in a desperate plea for freedom. Aris stared at the rows of jars. In some, the contents still glowed, vital and eager to escape. Others had dimmed, while in many the dreams had already faded and turned to ash. She smashed these first, cutting her bare feet on the splinters. She shattered every jar. It wasn't enough to simply open the lids. Some longings had been caged so long they wouldn't know they were free unless she obliterated all that contained them. The air turned nebulous and thick with wanting. She roamed deeper to shelves wreathed in cobweb. The jars were caked in dust, their contents long since crumbled. But on the furthest shelf in the darkest corner, she found a ceramic pithas. It was cold to the touch. Eris prickled with trepidation as she hauled the jar from the shelf. This was hers. It had no name etched into its design, but she knew what it was, even if she'd forgotten what it contained, what had been stolen from her. The pithas cracked between her palms. Ash and oily residue spilled across the floor. Eris wept as she knelt among the remains of all she could have been. She sifted the grit through her fingers, searching, her chest tightening on the emptiness she longed to fill. Her fingers snagged on the sharp edge of something bright struggling through the detritus. She washed it with her tears and cradled it in her palm. A name. Her truth. Not Eris. Not Strife. No. She was Elpis, even if she'd forgotten, even if they'd taken it from her. The living dreams swarmed around her. The brightest were Dylan's, pure silver with edges tinged red from recent removal. She strode from the library and flung wide the doors to her home, her prison. The dreams and aspirations sped into the night, streaks of incandescence, searching for their rightful roosts. And Elpis smiled as the emptiness in her chest filled with hope.
Not all dreams are shared willingly. Not all identities are ones we can safely be open about. In this story, Dylan lives as Jessica. Dylan is the future that Jessica dreams of. His mother doesn't see or accept this, though, to the point where his very existence is threatened. She sees her child's pain and confusion, but doesn't see that the source of that pain is that her child is forced to be someone they're not. She acts out of love, but also out of conformity and intolerance. How much deeper is the harm done to us when it comes from the hands of those we love? This week in the UK, our government has made multiple U-turns on whether or not they would ban LGBTQ+ conversion practices that seek to suppress or forcibly change people's sexual orientations or gender identities. While sexual orientation conversion practices will now be legislated against, gender identity conversion practices will not. The acceptance of society and the freedom to be our true selves is not shared equally. So, look deep in your heart, let your dreams and your truths loose if you can, and make space and welcome for those of the people around you. Join us again soon. We love bringing you the best audio fiction week after week, but we can't do it without your support. Your donations pay our authors, our narrators, our servers and our staff. Please consider supporting us with a monthly donation through either PayPal or Patreon. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts, request us on Spotify, and consider the stories we publish for award consideration. There are lots of ways you can help. Join the discussion on the EA Forum, forum.escapeartist.net, or the EA Discord. Visit us on Twitter at Cast of Wonders. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and is brought to you by editor Catherine Inskip, assistant editors Andrew K. Ho and Carissa Slough, editorial assistant Amy Brennan, associate editors Cami Adams, Tanya Adelit, Rian Bowley, Amy Brennan, Alicia Caparaso, Umera Hussein, Somto Eheswe, Kap Jacob, Amanda Kong, Ray O, Samuel Poots, Rin Richmond, Emma Smales and Denise Sudell. Our community manager is Denise Sudell and our audio producer Jeremy Carter. Our episodes are released under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can download or listen to the episode on any device you like, but you can't change it or sell it. The Little Wonders theme music is Neversus by Alexei Nov, available from Promo DJ or his Facebook page. Thank you for listening.